pending business. Presentation and discussion of new public safety facility visualization concepts. Manager Francis.
Thank you. We do have the team from Williams Architects that will walk the village board through the different schemes and designs for the board to take a look at and provide some feedback on. Additionally, I just wanted to provide the board a brief update. After this evening, the next step, based on the feedback that's received, Williams will then attend a Preservation Commission meeting and get additional feedback based on the narrowed down designs that the village board wants preservation to react to and give additional feedback. So I will turn it over to the Williams team.
Good evening, President Pollack, Village Trustees, Manager Francis. Happy to be here again tonight, and we'll have all four of our team members presenting this evening. A lot of information about the concept, so let's just get right into it. And next, please. So we want to just bring you up to speed as to where we've been, what we've been working on for the last few months, and ultimately, the four different ideas we have for the exterior of the project. We also have partnered with harbor contractors, and Chris Kozak is here tonight to tell you a little bit about where costs are projected at the moment, as well as some ideas to perhaps bring costs down. At this point, we are simply looking for feedback from you as the village board, what you like, what you don't like in terms of the exterior concept, so we can continue to move forward and refine. But most of all, we want to make sure we're answering your questions and keeping you as informed as possible about the proposal. So I sort of just gave away the updates. We've worked, had several meetings with staff. We've put together four very distinct concepts for the exterior. We've also really validated the work that you've seen so far by engaging a civil engineer and a structural engineer to make sure that we really understand the site, to confirm that we do not need to do anything further in terms of stormwater detention, which we have confirmed, and to understand how we would be actually structuring this in consultation with a structural engineer. So there is a measure of architectural and engineering feasibility that are baked into these concepts that we're going to show you tonight. And talked a little bit about next steps, as Manager Francis mentioned. We're ready to move upon your direction into design adjustments and review by the Preservation Commission, and to begin the community engagement process around this project. So with that, I will turn it over to our project manager, Kim Nigro, to recap the site plan and the floor plans, and then we'll move to the exterior concepts. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Glad to be back with you. I'll just start by recapping the site plan and floor plans, most of which you saw at our last presentation, but it has been refined based on your feedback and some consensus about the various schemes that we presented at our last meeting. So, oh good, this works. Oh, thank you. Sorry, just getting over a cough. Thank you, Chief. So just to give you the brief, quick overview of the site plan, of the various schemes that we presented last time, the main difference was whether the apparatus bay would be flanked by the apparatus support to the east or whether that support bar would be more in the center of the overall layout, based on, again, feedback from all of you and more conversations with the manager and chief. The decision was that keeping the apparatus bays more toward the center and putting that support on the outside edge provided a couple of different benefits within the plan layout itself as well as on the site. So this allows that apparatus apron to be a little further away from the drive down to the lower level, provides that surface level parking here for staff to come in quickly. And then we've also, again, still focusing on the community and public space here as a light-touched link to the existing village hall. Based on the feedback, again, we've focused the entryway right here on axis with the colonnade or view connection out toward the river. And as you'll start to see in the exterior schemes that we'll show you, all of the schemes have this layout on site. All of the schemes have this same kind of axis and exterior colonnade and patio space, and are basically all in the same massing and form on the site. So this lower level plan really, again, hasn't changed since you last saw it. Parking available for police here on the lower level, entrance for staff to a staff stair that takes them or through the elevator securely up to secure administrative space on the second floor. And then keeping kind of the basic storage of the building under the apparatus bay on this end and the evidence processing and storage here near where they would enter. And then the utilities on the far end. So this again, as I kind of recapped on the site plan, the main floor level has this community space around the lobby here with the public conference room and toilets and the, we're saying ornamental stair, that really just means open, not an enclosed fire stair. And space for displaying of the historic fire truck and potential repositioning of some village hall space in the existing village hall. And again, that really nicely consolidated, shared administrative space between police and fire. And then as we move to the east, the apparatus and the support zones for the apparatus bay. And on the upper level, again, all of the community space is focused here on the west end where they could come up this public stair, access restrooms, access the fitness space, come down this public corridor all the way through to the public terrace and to the community space, which has access to Riverside TV, the kitchen, and some storage. So the elevator is here centrally located. This would have public access at this level. Also, if police or fire needed to use that elevator at this upper level, they can do that and then come into a secure corridor where most of the police functions are focused right here with a men's locker room and toilet and showers, women's locker room, toilet and showers. And then as you move on, this shared kitchen, dining, and day room space. And then the more private bunk rooms and lockers for fire and EMS personnel. And that was one of the comments from the last meeting was liking them having kind of their own quieter wing over here on the other side of the apparatus bay. So yeah, again, just more public zone, shared, and more quiet private on the end. So with that, I'm going to move into exterior schemes, unless anyone has any thoughts or questions about the plan recap. So I want to start by, again, kind of talking about what's in common with the 4 different schemes that we've looked at. We've tried to take our cues based on listening to Chief and the manager and all of the committee about paying reverence to this historic village hall, but not trying to imitate it, understanding the cues that we're receiving from the proportions of the building and respecting that, following that language, but creating a new design for this new facility. So we've done things like looking at the strong horizontal masonry banding of this building and taking some cues from that. We've looked at the strong corner vertical elements with the turrets and taking some cues from that. And then we've, because of the large footprint of this plan as compared to this building, we've tried to break it down into those same kind of clear functions of public, administrative, fire, and make sure that it's not looking like a vast facade by comparison to this building. And at the same time, wanting to celebrate the height of this building while keeping this new facility lower. Again, because it is wider, a little larger in footprint, we wanted to not have it also be as tall and competing with this structure in that way as well. So we've kind of named each of these schemes so that you have a little something to remember. It's going to be a lot that we go through tonight, so I want you to be able to refer back to which was that scheme. So we've named this one Dynamic Response. And so Scheme 1 really started around a desire to look at how closely we are situated up against the Village Hall, but give it a little bit of room to breathe. So that footprint that in plan was pretty square, in this version we're sort of angling a few of the walls, mostly this colonnade that kind of leads you through to the river, and bending right around this point where we get tight at this turret. And so the idea was that as you enter in the facade, this column structure feels wider, feels welcoming, kind of funnels you into the space, and then widens again at the back, opens up again at the terrace. So you feel that kind of dynamic movement as someone from the community coming to that space. And then again, as I'd mentioned, we've taken these horizontal banding of the facility and kind of mirrored that in terms of the proportions of overall, and then breaking this community space down separately in mass from the apparatus bays and the support zone on the end. And in talking about some kind of tower anchoring elements vertically, in each scheme you'll see kind of this repeating vertical elements that repeat the rhythm of these elements. So this gives that view kind of right through the entry and through to the green space along the river, and you can kind of see those columns begin to repeat, leading you in. This would be that historic fire truck display, could be on either side, and then the public conference room and fitness here. So it is glassier on this front area. This is where those community spaces would be. And then each of these images will kind of move you around to the south toward the river and so this again is that, the bunk rooms here and some light into the apparatus bay, support spaces, some lighting into stair towers. And on the back, again, kind of expressing these ramps and this dynamic sort of angular shapes, again, where you emerge from the building with this colonnade, and then having repeating that kind of angled shading at the community terrace as well. And so then as you approach from the river walk from the west, you would enter this public patio level, and then again there's the terrace that's supported by that colonnade up at the community room level. I should have said in the beginning, each of these schemes might have elements or aspects that you like. They are all somewhat interchangeable. If there's some aspect of Scheme 1 that you feel like would also work or be celebrated in Scheme 3, just like with the plans, we want to show you these 4 options as a way of showing a lot of different ideas and then taking that feedback and working them in together. So there's kind of an aerial view where you can see that bending a little more clearly illustrated. And then the apparatus bay roof would be set a little lower to allow some daylighting in along the living, dining, day room spaces. Okay, move on to scheme number 2. Oh, one more, sorry, elevations. So the flat elevations we thought were kind of helpful to really look at the scale of this building compared to those historical datums and lines in the masonry and how we're kind of pulling those through. And then how we're kind of breaking down this eastern facade that's facing more towards the residential areas with more punched opening, smaller scale windows to keep that looking appealing. Okay.
evening again, President and Board and staff. Happy to be back here with you all. So this is, I've got control here, right? Forward and back. All right. As Kim shared, these images will take you on a walk around each one of the schemes. Another thing I wanted to mention with these, as you see, we're showing this in a very light, just kind of off-white color with a little hint of material. So to build on a bit of what was said, we're beginning to hint at materiality. So keeping that in mind too, like the kind of interchangeability of ideas with these schemes, some of these lend themselves to inherently a little bit more of a traditional look. But even the more modern look could use more traditional materials, masonry or wood cladding and different things that could kind of help bridge the gap between the new and the old. So just keeping that in mind, we've intentionally left these a little bit of a blank slate with that material flexibility in mind. So I'll take you around this one that we're calling contextual presence. And as you see immediately, it feels a little more traditional, a little more in tune maybe with the traditional architecture of the adjacent building. But yeah, very interested to have you all review all these and give us your thoughts if we're finding that balance. So the entry through the middle there, you've got the view through and hint of the river beyond. We've got the historic engine number 3 tucked into the space between the buildings on this one. And this one, you see, we've kept it a little further away than scheme 1, so you also see the view to the sky beyond. And with the tight program, there's moves that we make with these. Like with this one, you see the upper level begins to pull forward a bit. So by kind of moving it further away from the village hall, we flex and scoot the spaces forward a little bit. So just a subtle difference that you'll see with some of these. So here we're moving around to the northeast. This one also does the moves with the massing to step down and then step back up at the corners. Here's the view from the swinging bridge of the south facade, those views into the living spaces, and then the much larger glazed opening into the community room on the upper level. This one still has, as all of them have, the upper and lower terrace on the riverside, but with a more pulled back overhang. Here's the view from the potential Riverwalk coming up from the southwest. And note the large windows into and out of the community room. Here's the aerial from the northeast, and then the other aerial from the southwest. And also wanted to point out from the southwest views, you'll see a little hint of what we were thinking of as a potential art wall on what's currently a literal blank slate on the back side of the village hall, where we just have the lap siding there. Our thought was this could, with the adjacency of the new public space, could be an opportunity for a mural or art wall of some kind. So you'll see that in all of the schemes. The other unique difference on this one, a much more like curvilinear approach to the Riverwalk. And with all of these schemes, you'll also see how in collaboration with our civil engineers, we're retaining that, or we're keeping the existing retaining wall, and any proposed new work is being held back from that retaining wall from the river. So subtle detail on those Riverwalk schemes. There's the elevations. We were only showing the primary public elevations, but we've kind of studied, as you saw in the 3Ds, the alignment on all sides. And moving on to the next one, I'm going to take the middle two, and then I'll hand it off to another member, so you don't have to hear from one of us for too long. So this one we're calling spatial framing, and what you'll start to see with this one is this theme of kind of linear bands that encircle and frame certain spaces or views around the building. So there at the entry, this piece that rises up and frames that entry and the view through, and you see a hint of another framing element on the far side, which you'll see as we move around. Here we've got the stair towers, very similar massing to the others, responding to that program, but rather than the kind of capped tower, it's got this framing element that frames the tower with some glazing in there to provide light into the stair tower. Here's the view from the swinging bridge with the articulation of the south facade, more of those boxed elements around there, which as you start to see in this view, and you'll see in the other ones as well, the articulation on the south, we begin to push and pull a little bit to provide solar control on the south. The lighting here is based on accurate sun light that would hit the building at different times in the year. So you can see how in like morning light, in I forget what day we based this on, but those elements that come out are providing an important feature to help prevent glare and direct heat gain coming into those spaces while still allowing views out. This one has that framing around that upper piece, so still open to the river, but a little more enclosed. Here's the view approaching down the possible Riverwalk extension and the aerial views. Yeah, so more of a angular kind of Riverwalk scheme shown on this one, and you'll notice with all of these we were providing some like stepping, terracing, or like potential little planter areas that would provide engagement on the Riverwalk and terrace as well. Here's those elevations. All right, I'll hand it back to Kim.
So this final scheme, we wanted to certainly show a version that did have pitched roofs and take a little bit of a cue from this building in that way, while at the same time not going quite for the steepness that this building has. This is not a building of that era, and we don't want to, again, compete with this building in that way. So, but we did want to do a version to show you where we use those different roof shapes again to anchor these sort of towers at the corner and give presence to the entryway. The other thing about this scheme and why we're calling it traditional anchoring is we're also exploring some other ideas of smaller punched openings that might lend itself more to an overall masonry construction, again, a little more like the Village Hall. And like Joe said, the materiality is going to be another opportunity to relate back to this building in terms of color and materials and those kinds of selections, regardless of what form the new building takes. So in terms of some of the elements in this scheme are very similar to scheme number 2 in terms of these vertical kind of engaged columns and some of these sort of outriggers that are something a little bit prairie style or craftsman in nature. So again, the similar view towards the river. And in each scheme, we are trying to think about providing, some space where you would want privacy on the inside anyway. It creates a signage opportunity on the exterior. So as we move to the south, again, just looking at breaking up some of these areas of glazing, slightly smaller glazing areas, balancing what might be some additional roofing costs with maybe less glazing costs. And in this scheme, one other difference on the rear here is that because of the roof massing, we've extended the roof out and made this a fully covered terrace where the columns go all the way up to support that roof structure. Again, in this scheme, we're showing the same kind of Riverwalk element with the curvilinear design as in scheme 2. Knowing that we aren't the landscape architects, we're the architects, but this building has so much integral relationship with what we know will be an important river future Riverwalk. And so regardless of, or even the early stages right now, we want to make sure that the architecture of this new facility is addressing that outdoor space, even at a conceptual level, and being informed by it. So again, as Joe mentioned, all of the schemes have that public art opportunity that, if you're enjoying this terrace, you've got a nice view of that public art opportunity. And there you can see a little better in elevation how those kind of roof elements relate, but don't compete with the Village Hall. So just to kind of recap, so you can see them all in one place, we thought would be helpful. Again, hopefully seeing them all at once reiterates the point that we've made about the overall massing, the breaking up into public, fire, support elements, and using those towers to anchor the corners and mimic the existing Village Hall in that way. And again, just the slightly different Riverwalk schemes as placeholders of that future idea and how this terrace space might start to relate to a future Riverwalk. Okay, you want to stop and take some questions on the overall schemes or go all the way through?
I'd say go all the way through.
Great. Do you want to introduce this or no?
We'll turn it over to
Yes.
Well, thank you, everybody, and it's a pleasure to be here and glad to meet you. And I know I've worked with a couple of you in the past on different projects, but as a little introduction, again, Chris Kozak with Harbor Contractors. We're a 67-year-old construction management and contracting company, and public safety facilities is probably one of our primary market segments. I mean, I've been with the company for 23 years, and I don't recall a time we hadn't had an active public safety project on at any one of those times. So with our experience on building projects and current projects and our historical costs, we kind of work with the Williams team to help provide some validation of the costs, and obviously are being presented with some options and decisions to show kind of the order of magnitude impacts of those types of decisions. So we'll kind of get right into it. Go backwards. So to get right into it, again, we based everything kind of off of the Scheme 1 project with initial price, and we've got some details in the background of that, but try to give some validation of the different schemes and kind of their impacts of how things move along and change. Obviously, if you look at the concepts, there are some different things, more roof lines, more glass, and more windows, and those kind of lead to the, sure.
I'm sorry if I could interrupt.
Absolutely.
Could you tell us what, when you say Scheme 1, use the terminology as also that, so Scheme 1 is the dynamic?
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Yep, the Scheme 1 is the dynamic, and let me see if I go back a couple here. Where's your recap? Yeah, the Scheme 1 is a dynamic.
Yeah.
And the next one, Scheme 2, the contextual presence, that would be your, a lower
Yeah.
cost of approximately $300,000 than the Scheme 1. You know, you get to go back to Scheme 3, the spatial context. That one, it's basically the same cost as Scheme 1. It shows a small different thing. And then Scheme 4 is the highest cost. If you go, again, you get additional roof lines, the extra canopies, and all that, so. So that's the total project budget we came up with, and we'll get to the next slide. It shows it is total project budget, escalation, contingencies, owner costs, and all that. That's one thing that you'll see as we go through. And then, on top of that, we did the Riverwalk allowance of additional budget of $3.5 million. The main patio function of all of the options is in the base number, but the extension of the Riverwalk's going east and west, and that's kind of an area that's kind of up for design a little bit. And then, we did have another item of renovations to the existing building. There's some functions that are leaving this building, kind of out of the basement moving area. We kind of that as a placeholder of if you're gonna do something with those spaces now or moving on. So what I want to talk about, again, this is probably a really important item of the total project budget. We do this a lot. We go through a lot of municipalities who are, obviously you're looking what other people have done, and you hear people talk about project costs of different projects they've done. Those numbers are often all over the place. Some of them include land, some of them include owner costs, some of them are just the building costs. So this represents the total project budget. Going through there, the biggest item is the construction costs of the 22.3, which is about 75% of the total budget. Next biggest one is The soft cost, the owner's cost, it's gonna be design fees, furniture, a lot of costs that you guys have to deal with whenever you're doing a project. It's kind of all encompassing of the complete cost. We have included a contingency at this point. The way we put these estimates together, like I said, we got a lot of experience doing this. We've worked with Williams quite a bit. We know, even though these drawings are early stages, we kind of can envision what they're gonna be when they get done completing them. We know all the details that have to get added. We've had conversations with their structural engineers and worked with their civil side, so we can kind of anticipate what those things are gonna be. But, it'd be foolish at this point not to have a contingency in there, because there's gonna be things that move around. And we also included an escalation factor in there, anticipating that this would be a 2028 start. We kind of do that on a, average continual escalation over the years. We don't really factor any current little minor price impacts. They usually all kind of smooth out and just kind of go over the historical, 3-4% that goes kind of per year. So anybody have any questions on the total project budget? Okay. If we go to the next one, one of the things we do on many of the projects, yes, we're a builder, but we get involved very early on in these conceptual stages, not only to help guide those or provide some cost validation behind those design decisions, but as with every project, everybody's trying to find the most economical way to build the project. So we start looking at options with the Williams team as they're going through design for are there ways for cost reductions? There's kind of two major categories, the A and B. There's permanent changes, decisions that you'll make that you can't really go back on, of cutting the building in half or taking off a floor or something like that, major decisions or major program changes of reducing square footages. Those are difficult to come back with. The next one is bid alternates or future phases. It's portions of the project that we can establish when it gets to the point of this thing goes out for trade contractor bidding, alternate pricing. They can be either adds or deducts of, hey, add the build out of this room. They will provide the actual pricing. That decision can be made when you get the real final numbers at bid time. So that's a good strategy to, kind of maximize your budget and also not, get in a situation where you eliminate something and go, oh man, we got really good numbers. The bids came in really well. In 2008, the economy was a perfect timing for bidding, and we wish we wouldn't have made that change. It gives you those options to have those things in there and choose as you go. So, initial options, just talking, and work with the Williams teams, we came up with about $3.5 million of just initial options. That's kind of a first round of that, and it's kind of a continued effort during the design and pre-construction. The way we work with the Williams teams is, as they're coming up with an option or something, they won't completely spend the time and effort and fully to design it out. They'll consult with us, we'll work with them and guide them along the way of, hey, this is a more economical way to do it, or, here's a couple options you can consider as you're going through the design. But, some of the options we've investigated are, reduction in program spaces. Those are things, obviously, you spend a lot of time working on a program, but, sometimes choices have to be made, and that's something to look at and, evaluate it and look at those as you go through. The other thing is build shell and core with future build outs. It's quite a common thing we do with a lot of clients where, hey, you design a portion of the building, you build the entire shell and core and everything's there, you just don't put the finishes in. And it's either funded as a separate project or a bid as an alternate or something that could be a future phase of the project. The west parking lot, it's kind of the same thing. We had in the budget reconstructing the west parking lot, and new paving and getting that, cleaned up and a little bit, that could be a separate project later down the road. West Garage Drive, we've got the drive through the garage, running through, from east to west with the 2 garage doors. Same thing, that's something that could be a bid alternate or, done as a future phase on the project. Reduction amount of windows, that's something, as you look at the different concepts, that's something that could be applied to any one of these concepts. Obviously that's one of the more expensive items on any project is the glass is more expensive than the masonry. So it's something to look at. Alternative exterior materials. We've already worked with the Williams team on the actual structural design of the building to kind of bring some costs a little bit more in line with that. But alternate materials, that's something, not necessarily, could be a wholesale change in materials or it could be selective materials. And Williams very good at mixing different materials and making it flow very well with their designs, but that's something we look at as options as we go through the project. There's other things of elimination of the ornamental stair, going to something more traditional than the kind of grander lobby that's in there. And then, some open office space layouts. That's something to look at, a little more of a different concept where you have more of a cubicle type arrangement than offices. Obviously, given the nature of this facility, some of those things need to be separate, separate private offices, but it's an option to look at. So pretty much it's to provide kind of a guideline, a path of moving forward and continually looking at options throughout the process of what's the most economical way to meet your guys' vision. So that's kind of where we provide that support and help with that along the way. So any questions on that cost reduction process or thoughts?
We'll go through this, once you guys are done, we'll go through this in more detail.
Sure. Absolutely. I think that's the last slide on that, right? We got one.
Thank you, Chris. So just to wrap up and then open everything up for questions and for feedback. Next steps, we certainly want to hear from all of you, what you're thinking, what questions you have, what preferences you have, anything that you want to say, don't ever show us again. It's all on the table. And the goal is to show you a number of options so that we can work together to get to the solution that's in the best interest of the community. So as we mentioned, we'll have this discussion tonight, answer questions you have. We want to, if you all coalesce around a particular exterior idea, that's wonderful. That is not our expectation or our goal for this evening. It's merely to receive feedback. If you wish as a village board to sort of narrow the funnel for preservation, that certainly is something you can choose to do. But our next steps are to present this to that group and then to start the engagement process to inform the community not only about the design for this project and the options for this project, but to work with staff and work with all of you around the underlying need. Why are we doing this? Why is this necessary? Why are we doing it now? So that is all coming up in the coming weeks and months, but it's a lot of information. We're doing a public safety facility with fire and a lot of information sort of through a proverbial fire hose. So at this point, love to turn it over to you for questions and comments.
Thank you. In order for us to, there's a lot to digest here, obviously. And I want to organize how we proceed with our discussion. I have a suggestion, but I'm open to other considerations. I would suggest we go through the visuals first, one at a time. Maybe we say what we like and don't like about each one, and then we get into the cost reduction discussion, because the cost reduction applies equally, more or less, to all the different options, right? Yeah. Does that work for the trustees? So I'd like to start with the site plan, because I have one comment on the site plan.
Oh, you got it. Thank you. I'll just stay right here.
And this relates to the cost-saving stuff, too. My comment when I first saw this over the weekend was, do we really need that West Drive at all? And so I asked Manager Francis that, and I believe the answer was not really.
No, initially when we were talking about that drive, it was when we were conceptually thinking about having the fire apparatus kind of swinging around, but that changed and evolved over time. So that additional access point is not needed. And actually, that will probably help free up space for trash enclosure.
And it could be could be used in the future as more public space as well.
Certainly.
It's valuable riverfront space. To have an unnecessary drive doesn't seem necessary.
Sort of the site plan question leads into another one of my questions about all the schemes, and that is for the mechanicals for the buildings. A lot of places put their air conditioner condensers on the roof. I just wasn't clear on where the intended place for that was and whether they would be visible or somehow enclosed.
Sure, I can answer that question. And we haven't determined the exact mechanical systems for the project
Right, I
yet.
understand
But it's very likely that we'd have something for cooling and ventilation on the roof, which would be fully screened. That lower roof over the apparatus bays is an ideal place for that. I have not studied your zoning ordinance in great detail, but I'm relatively certain that it would require screening of those units. So that would handle a lot of the ventilation and cooling. Heating, we can look at options indoors. We do like to do these facilities with hot water heat and then air handling units, which could be in the basement mechanical rooms. But we do anticipate some degree of equipment on the roof and for that equipment to be screened.
Are there any of the particular designs that would be more amenable to that? I mean, it seems like some of them are pretty flat and low.
Yeah, I think it's something we have to study, to be very honest. In my mind, the more contemporary or the low slope or flat roof concepts that have more horizontal elements lend themselves to those mechanical enclosures a little better, because we could use more horizontal elements to help with that screening. But if the desire of the village is to explore something that has those more traditional forms, we can find ways to screen in ways that make sense. We work on projects all the time where it looks like a sloped roof building from the street, and somewhere in the center, invisible to anybody except someone who has a drone or somebody flying over, you've got some mechanical stuff there.
Wonderful, thank you.
So I think we can work that out no matter what.
Any other questions or comments on the site plan? Is there general agreement to eliminate the West Drive?
Yes.
Great. So let's move on to the dynamic response. Was that was? Yeah. So before we get into that detail, I just want to answer one question that I know we all have had, or I've heard, is we're not at the stage where we could say what we're doing to make this an environmentally friendly building, but we will be, and it will be an environmentally friendly building to the extent possible, meaning bird-friendly windows, meaning efficient utilities, all the stuff that goes into making a building sustainable. So that will be a priority. It's just, we're not there yet. So, dynamic response. What do you like or dislike about it? Anybody? Aberdeen?
I actually like this one a lot. I really like the fact that it has some angularity to it. It's contemporary. I see, in the section that's behind the Riverside logo, that there's some, horizontal banding, which suggests to me that warm wood that you sometimes see in contemporary glass, like you were talking about, kind of softening or harmonizing with materials, something that is of a different time period with its surrounding architecture. So, this is very intriguing to me. And, I always kind of wonder a little bit about like the pitch of the roof, or is it flat? Like, I can't exactly tell what's going on with it, and how that works with drainage and things like that. But I really think it's a very energetic and dynamic building. So congrats on the initial concept. I'm not sure about the Riverwalk, having that be straight, as straight as it is. I mean, that's very, very angular. But in general, I think there's a lot of positive things to be said about this one.
I completely agree with you, Aberdeen.
All right. So there you go.
When I look at all four of them, this first one is the one that I actually had an emotional response to. I actually felt like architecture is such a big deal in Riverside, and we have so many different architectural styles incorporated. And this to me is a visually interesting building that doesn't try and blend in. It doesn't, it's in itself, it is interesting. I also feel like I worked on a college campus for over a decade, and obviously we were always building. And every time we tried to build something that looked a lot like something else, it was never received well because it never looked enough like it, and it was trying to be something else. And one of the things I really like about this is it's not trying to be like the building that's directly next to it, which is something that is awesome in Riverside, that you can have two houses, you can have a Victorian right next to a Frank Lloyd Wright, right next to a bungalow. And so I really liked the way that the lines kind of called to the building next to it and were cohesive with it, but it was its own building. It was its own design. That was really, like I said, this is the only one I actually had a response to. The rest of them I was like, well, these are fine. The other thing I love about this one is I love all the glass, and I feel like if you are inside this building, you're gonna get a ton of natural light and feel much more like you're in nature. Way more so than, we were talking about with the last scheme, where the openings were smaller and stuff. I really felt like this would feel much more connected to the river and the forest that's around it, more so than some of the other designs.
Any other comments on this?
I have a question. So it looks like the roof on scheme 1, it's pitched. Does it go like this, or is it straight across the top?
I mean, it will have a pitch to drain water.
Yeah.
There are a number of ways that we handle that, and even with the pitched roof beyond, that fascia element that is the large horizontal band, would stay flat. So it may be a little bit of optical illusion with the way that it bends around the turret. And so
Sure.
it does kind of look as though it's peeking up, but the intent is that it be a really strong horizontal band of fascia all the way around the building, and that movement is more in plan view.
I'm happy to provide my thoughts. Initially, this wasn't my favorite, although I liked it. I still like it. Trustee Marshowska and Trustee Koss may convince me that it's the favorite. But what I do like about it a lot is all the glass on the front side. I mean, I think that it's symbolic of transparency. It connects it to the exterior. I really like that part of it. I like the horizontal lines. I like the small thing, but I really like the sign freeze above the garage doors. The opportunity to have that branding there, that Riverside Public Safety Center. I realize you could do that in other ways on other elevations, but on this one, it's got a nice, perfect, it's like it's designed to have that. It would look empty without the sign on it. What I am hesitant about with it is the blank wall that we're looking at right now, where the, on the left side of the bays. And then on the back side, yes, I like that, okay. Initially, I thought there was too much blank walls, but maybe not. Or that, from that perspective, it made me feel like there were too many blank walls. But those were my thoughts. Does anyone else want to weigh in? We'll go on to the,
yeah.
go ahead.
I like all of them. I think we all do great work on it, and I like how the facade is broken up. For me, this design doesn't break it up enough, and I know that's intentional to take that straight line all the way across the main part of the building. Just my personal preference, I don't care for that.
I would just like to see your emphasis on the windows in the back, just because that's overlooking the river, which is our most important
I will
resource.
say that one of the comments this scheme in particular that.
Can you go to the podium, please?
Sorry, just one of the comments on this scheme from the group about the glass from the Riverside was a concern for vandalism. They do get, there are, as we were having this discussion, walking through broken windows facing the river. And so from a practical standpoint, we wanted to, again, show a variety of options. If more glazing for views, and that's why in this scheme, we did really try to focus in on where are people occupying the space for long periods of time and having views from the living spaces. The apparatus bay at the lower level, that's more prone to damage from both inside and out. And then focusing the glass more on the community space where it will have the views. But as mentioned, any of these comments about where you do or don't want more glass, you know, we can translate those comments easily to any of the schemes.
Are they designed as all windows, or is it just a sort of a strip of windows?
I mean, typically when we have a large expanse of glass like this, it will either be a curtain wall system or a storefront system, so it's not all operable if that's what, so we would design certain amount of actual ventilation, open windows that can open within that system, but it would not all be operable if that's,
You mean open and close?
yes,
Oh,
sorry.
No, I wasn't really thinking about that. I just wanted to know how big the windows are. It looks like there's only a strip of windows, not the whole space, the whole area of the squares.
I see. I think you're seeing the ceiling going through, and so that
Okay,
looks
thank
solid.
you. Yes,
Yeah, I
I
see
see
what
it.
you're saying now. So that is ceiling beyond.
I see it. Thank you.
And then, actually, in this space, if you're in the, this is the dining room, there are windows looking over the apparatus bay on the other side. So, and there's also windows lower looking from that space into the apparatus bay. So I think you're actually seeing, I'm gonna go the other way. Nope, wrong way. These windows showing through from the back view is what is kind of throwing off that view of the glass. But thank you for pointing that out.
Also, I just want to mention, where you see the most windows are the public spaces, because that was staff's focus as we met with Williams.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to have windows. I mean, it'd be cool to have textual architecture design in the bottom part where the bay is, but it doesn't make sense to have windows there because that's where all the trucks are and stuff like that. You know, like you said, they can get damaged. That's not a great spot for, I mean, as much as I would love it, there's not a lot to see and there's not a lot of people looking even from inside. There aren't people looking outside.
Yeah, it may be that the selection of exterior materials will impact this view a lot.
Yeah,
As well as the landscape and ramp design, you know, other things that we use to fill in that lower space. There's opportunities both for landscaping and material change to make sure that's not a large blank facade.
Any other comments on this one? So let's talk about number 2, contextual.
Sorry. They're really small on my screen. So I'm seeing a lot of the same shapes, roughly.
There you go.
Oh, that's the rear view. Nope, there we go. Contextual.
Trustees?
This is my favorite one. Again, I like how it's broken up. I like this, there's a lot of vertical lines to it, and of course, the windows.
I like this one less because I liked the horizontality of the other one. And I feel like the columns here are distracting in a way, that they're kind of like added just so we could have columns. And it doesn't speak to it doesn't really speak to function for me, so.
I have a question about the entry, the main entry. Is it a triangle in between the two buildings? Is it smaller? What is the shape of the lobby?
Where the truck is, are you talking about?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So just as a reminder, I'll opine and then Williams can fill in the gaps. So we're gonna be taking down where basically the fire trucks are, right? Because that was an old addition, all the fire equipment, and then you have offices currently on the outside of that. So all of that would be removed. So what you're seeing in creating that connection is the connection to the historic building, which occupies where our front desk is. It also has different areas as it relates to police, other like copier equipment, those types of things. And so it's kind of mirroring the existing building, creating that lobby connection to then the new building. So it would be somewhat triangular, but it'll be open as it's kind of illustrated there. Does that make sense? Okay.
What I liked about this one was the roof line, the cornice line. You know, puts a definitive end on the height of the building, which probably, you know, gives it a little bit better relationship to the town hall building. The turrets or the columns, if you go back to that corner piece on the left, has windows. It has a cap. It's like a traditional Roman column or whatever. I think it'd be an Ionic column, or Doric.
Doric is the one with the swirls at the top.
Ionic has the curls. Corinthian has the
Leaves,
Yes.
right?
So it's Doric, Ionic, Corinthian.
Doric, the simplest Doric.
Please tell me you got that on tape. Please tell me that somebody videoed that. That was awesome.
There a dance routine
Well done.
that goes with
Well done.
My work is done.
I like the backside of this one, but quite honestly, equally, I like that it's cost less. I mean, that's not a deal. That's, you know, it doesn't cost enough less to where if I, you know, didn't like it, I'd do it. But that's a plus in its column.
I mean, I like this one. I feel like it's fine.
It's not as exciting as the
Yeah,
other.
that's how I feel.
Yeah.
It's fine.
It's not as risky, not as exciting.
Yeah, and I feel like we're such an architectural village, right? Architecture is so important to so many people in this village that having something that's just kind of fine or like, you know, I don't want to offend anybody. I'm really sorry, but like, it looks like a lovely strip mall or like a really lovely one, not like your gross corner, you know, but like it's like a lovely strip mall kind of thing. And I don't feel like it has the like, wow.
Yeah. Any other comments on this one?
I agree with Trustee Koss.
We are never like this. This is awesome.
Well, let's move on to number 3, spatial framing. To me, this one's similar to the first one, not the same, but it has a lot of similarities.
The lines are a little bit more broken up.
Any other comments on this one, or?
You said that it was a craftsman style?
That was.
The windows.
For scheme 2 and 3.
That was scheme 2, oh.
Had more craftsmen. I'm sorry, 2 and 4. 2
Oh, okay.
and 4.
This is a little more modern and the same.
Can you go to the microphone, please?
Can't pick it up for our audio if it's not on the mic.
I apologize.
No, you're fine.
Anyone can answer these questions for our team, but yeah, this one has a little bit more about modern references in the framing lines, whereas scheme 2 and 4 did have some, what we would consider more traditional craftsman detailing with the deep overhangs and the detailing of kind of the outriggers supporting that roof line. But, you know, that can be accentuated or not in terms of the detailing of the building, so.
This one seems just too modern. I don't know if it would look as nice next to the township building. Looks very modern to me.
Because it's a little too busy and distracting.
Yeah. I didn't really like the, if you'll go to the backside perspective. Yeah, well, no, not that one. The swinging bridge side.
This one?
That's good, that's good. The framing of the columns on the edges, at the corners, and the framing of the window bays seem to me to be not natural, something like that, not organic.
Interesting.
So, speaking for myself, either 1 or 2 I'd prefer over this one. Does anybody feel any differently from that? Good, we can move on to number 4. Traditional anchoring, this is the most expensive one, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I'm guessing, because of the roof, almost entirely, if not entirely.
Which I did like the roof on this one.
Others, comments?
This is my least favorite one. Again, I'm sorry, Alex, but I don't love the roof. I also don't love that the windows are smaller and choppier. I like seeing the expanse of windows. I think it's, yeah, I just think it's more interesting with the expanse of windows, and I don't know. Yeah, again, what I worry about with this one is that it's gonna look like that we tried really hard to make it sort of look like the building that's next to it, but it doesn't really look like the building that's next to it, and that people are gonna be like, we tried, but we didn't, and it's gonna look not right. Not that you wouldn't do a fantastic job on it, but.
But you're absolutely correct, Trustee Cost, and you've commented before. I think historic preservationists would say the same thing. Don't try to look just like the other building. Be respectful of the other building, but don't try to copy it exactly. That's a fine line, I know, but
No, you're right, because I can understand if you did have the same shingles on both buildings, then you are trying to mimic it. And if they're 2 different ones, it still wouldn't complement it quite well. I think at number 1, it does have a very nice complementary horizontal line. It does pay some homage to it as well. So while I was impressed with this one, it's not my favorite. I would think number 1 is probably the best one.
so given what I'm hearing, does this rise above 1 or 2 for anybody? Good. But we're down to 2. And I would suggest that we send those 2 to our Preservation Commission, saying, here's what we like, and ask for their feedback.
Emily, can you put the 4 up again?
Yeah,
Thank you.
wait, this is 4.
No, I mean,
No, the
all
4.
All 4, sorry.
Page 175.
There you go.
Yep.
I think that's a good suggestion.
So that's the plan, based on the board's discussion, is the next step is the April 9th preservation meeting that we would solicit additional feedback.
And we're gonna send 1 and 2 to them, is that what we're doing?
What's that?
We're gonna send schemes 1 and 2?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I mean, they can look at all 4 of them because this is on our website, but
Okay.
Yeah.
the direction would be the village board is asking for their response to 1 or 2. If they have comments about 3 or 4, I wouldn't stop them from commenting, but, you know,
Free speech and all.
yeah. So let's next go to the cost reduction page.
Wait, could we just say one more thing about
Sure.
scheme one?
Yeah,
So I think your feedback was that the side, the east-facing side was too plain.
well, it's more that blank column that faces the street.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it's the north, just
Oh,
that
yeah.
one column. And maybe it makes sense, and maybe, again, it's, with the right materials, it's fine.
Or open to suggestions on that one.
Yeah.
Or
yes, I would
could
say.
you just maybe do something to it?
It's a stair, so.
Stairway?
Yeah,
Which you could, I mean, like Kristen said, you could do architectural elements, you know, you could do, I was kind of thinking in the blank spaces, they wouldn't in all of these games, they wouldn't necessarily be blank, they're just blank slates. I don't know, maybe I'm,
Yeah.
Could be
and-
a contrasting panel of some kind, right?
Well, and I also just wanted to remind everybody as well, like some of the elements could be interchanged. So one thing that came to my mind there was signage potentially, like we showed, there's that area adjacent to the entry, which kind of makes sense for a good signage location, but there's all, like that could be an opportunity for signage. But absolutely, like there's still opportunity to articulate it with windows. I recall in this scheme, I think the way that stair gets its light is that we had like a narrow slit window on the side that's not really visible, but as some of the other examples showed, that's a great opportunity to do like a linear slit window that would let light into the stairs. So yeah, there's definitely ways that could be further developed.
cool.
anything else on the elevations? Let's go to that cost reduction page.
Go, Emily, go. Go, Emily, go. You can do it.
Pressure on her.
I'm glad she's doing that. I would be panicking. I'd be like, I can't find the
We
right
also
page.
have broken out slides for the cost estimates too, that kind of depict more if you need more visual.
So there was another page, though, that had the list of there.
That.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's go through that. Reduction in program spaces, that just means making the building smaller, right? I don't think we want to do that.
No.
I mean, yeah. Build shell and core for future. That just means spending money later rather than now.
When it's more expensive.
And if we're going to referendum, you know, I feel like we should be honest and say this is what it costs and
Yeah.
this is how much money we need. We talked about the west driveway, and I think we agreed that we would eliminate that. We talked a lot about windows, and if anything, we wanted more windows. So that one's out. And then, yeah, exterior materials, that's for a future discussion, correct? We can decide what, you know, at some point, we'll see what the different materials cost and what the savings are in that. The elimination of ornamental stair, I'm guessing trustees don't have an opinion until you see the difference between
Yeah.
the ornamental and non-ornamental, right? And how much we save or don't save. So is that the difference,
This
more or
is
less?
more of an open stair, I can let Andy.
Yeah, so ornamental and open stairs, we kind of use interchangeably. So these are some more contemporary examples, especially if you're tending in the direction of our schemes 1 or 2. This kind of expression where the stairs and railings are a little bit more contemporary, open to the rest of the space. Whereas if we're looking at an enclosed stair, or what we would normally consider an egress stair, yes, we can do some glass. So there is a measure of transparency, but just not as nice. More of what we would think of as an enclosed exit stair like you have right at the front of the building here. So there is obviously a cost difference between those two. But it's one way among many to save a few dollars if you're so inclined.
I can only speak for myself. I'm not so inclined.
Yeah, I'm not either.
Yeah, those first 2 pictures, those beautiful. That's that's our public space.
Right.
If you'll go back to the previous one,
Ooh.
yeah. No, the other stair one.
Oh. Is it enclosed?
The other stair.
The pretty one?
Pretty one?
Yeah. No, that's
nice.
that one on the left. That's what I want our primary village space to look like.
Yeah.
It's the Gately Park Field House on the far south side of Chicago, if anybody's interested, one of our projects.
Well done.
Yes.
What is in the space underneath the staircase?
Great question. So whenever we have a stair where you have open space underneath, we can't let somebody underneath it until the headroom is at least 6'8". So we need a way to block off those lower areas, so we're not bumping our heads up against something. And in this particular project, they just decided to enclose that with a little bit of a low wall that people could sit on as they're in the lobby. Depending on how we would articulate the stair, we may not end up having that condition at all, where we have to close that off our patio.
We just had a moment. I just saw an open staircase with an enclosure like that had seating on the outside, but it had a lichen garden on the inside of it, which is like extremely low maintenance, and it was installed in this really artistic pattern, and I can show you photos, and it was cool, and
Yeah.
that would be a really neat.
Absolutely.
I feel like that doesn't fall into the cost saving.
You know what?
But you know what, Emily, you and I are, yeah, I think it's right there,
It's
right?
like, yeah.
Be an LAC project.
It's a once in a lifetime.
Love it.
Sustainability.
Yes, yeah.
So there was one more item on that list of potential cost reductions, I think. Yeah. And I'm not interested in open office space layouts. And that was a trend for a long time, and I'm sure you guys can have an opinion on that. From everything I've read, open office space makes people less productive. I've read articles to that. Yeah, because of the distractions, I guess. But,
Well, and I think we're building this for public safety
Yeah.
and primarily
To
we want this
retain
to be. Yeah.
people, make sure they
Yeah,
want
we
to
want
be
it to be
there.
nice. Yeah, those are the spaces that I least want
No one wants a cube.
cut,
Right.
right?
We don't want cubes.
Yeah, cubes are no fun for anyone.
okay.
I
Joseph?
have intentionally been quiet for the time being. I'm not pretending I am a design expert on anything. Chris can attest to this, though I've been through this before with a project similar, actually bigger in size, with a public safety thing. And I just want to say, first off, from my perspective, the site design was the most important thing. Operationally, administratively, it was staff-driven in regards to the layouts of everything. So I think that's the most important thing. As long as the designs, whether it's 1 through 4, at any point does not interfere with any of the operations, or with the public engagement, I think I'm fine with that. If you had to ask me for any type of design element, I would say make the walkways curvy. That's
Meandering, we like to call it meandering.
meandering.
Please.
I think you guys, you did a great job
Yeah.
with the layout for the site, because I'm more operational on it. And I would defer to the board and preservation for their direction as well.
Thank you. Anything else? Very good. Thank you.
Well, thank you all for such thoughtful commentary, honest
So
commentary. It's important for us to hear what you like and what you don't like, because that helps us get to the best possible solution. I also want to thank our entire team, in addition to our Riverside resident Joe and Kim. There's another team of folks behind this effort at our office that has really poured their heart and soul into this. This is a really exciting project for us to be a part of, and we're really looking forward to next steps. So thank you very much.
Thank you.